You need facts, figures, scores, and scoops, and the truth.
One. Hi there, welcome to Shaun Bartlett Top Bins, and we've got the privilege this week of interviewing Andre Arendse, who was one of my first teammates, and also obviously who started our careers at Cape Town Spurs. Andre, how you doing, mate?
All good, bud. How you doing, man? It's lovely to chat. Of course, we don't do enough of this over the years, but that's because
Yeah,
life gets in the way, and it's such a good pleasure for me to do this today. And thanks for having me.
yeah, yeah. No, it's an absolute pleasure. Obviously, everybody see you now at Super Sport, but very few people know where did Andre Arendse start?
Yeah, I think Andre Arendse started like you, a wannabe striker, but only the only difference is you became the proper one. But that's what all goalkeepers will tell you, of course, over the years. I'm no different.
Mm,
But what the best part about me being a striker was that I realized very quickly that I wasn't very good at it. So I went across to be a goalkeeper, and I have no regrets, certainly after that. And it's a position in the game that's given me
mm,
longevity, and it's given me a wonderful career spanning over
yeah,
so many years, and giving me a chance to obviously, like
yeah.
yourself, see the world.
Yeah, we're talking about Cape Town Spurs, and not again, people won't remember or actually realize, but we were professional footballers, but we had also jobs that we had to take care of. So we weren't full time at the time. How did you find that balance, or how did you cope with it?
Football was always my passion. And
Mm,
perhaps I can speak the same for you as well. But I'll let you tackle that. But football was always my passion, and
mm,
football was always
mm,
going to be the winner, I suppose. When the game really kicked into a professional level, if you like, over the years. And as you say, we had jobs. I had a job. And that was the first priority. But I tell you what, I could not wait to get to the practice ground at 5 o'clock every single day. Once I clocked out of the office and got in the car and got down
mm,
there and literally just let it all go and
mm,
do what I love doing the most. And I think that for me that was the challenge.
mm,
How we could find that balance between the 9 to 5 and the after 5 going into the weekend where it was taken
mm,
up by games. Um, but I think the one thing that was probably the best part about that was that it kept you mentally in tune. It kept you mentally alert. So
yeah,
you were having to
mm,
concentrate through the day in your job, and then of course use that on the training ground in preparation
mm,
for the weekend's game. So when it started to evolve, and those who had jobs back and they will tell you once it started to evolve and the game became more professional, we always knew that we were going to
mm,
have to make a decision between the day job
yeah,
and of course full
mm,
time in the pro setup. And it was one of the most, for me personally, it was one of the most, I think, amazing decisions that I had to make in terms
mm.
of deciding between the two, given the opportunities, and of course, but it was a no-brainer. The passion was there, and I was going to go where the passion was.
Do you think us having jobs at the time also maybe kept us a little bit more humble, down to earth as professional footballers?
I think you're 100% correct. I think that's the word that most likely is the word to use, humble. And I think that's a very big missing link in the modern game, because we always knew that
Mm,
because we played the game sort of part time and we had jobs. There were huge
mm,
respect levels for the game, from
yeah,
from all of us really in the day, and we
mm,
knew that there wasn't a lot of money in the game. So it wasn't a case of chasing the money. It wasn't a case of chasing the big contracts. It was a case
yeah,
of chasing your dream, chasing your passion, and
mm,
wanting to do the best you could under those conditions and circumstances. And I think that for me is probably one of the factors that I can take through my entire career, is the humility
mm.
that I've always had to keep part of me. That was a non-negotiable for me. Humble through every step of my journey as a pro, as a professional player.
Yeah, you obviously mentioned 9-5, but I'm going to use that number. Obviously, remember 1995, we won the Bob Save and the league with Cape Town Spurs. Obviously, great memories for both of us. But after that, also, we managed to make the national team.
Yes, that was an insane year because I always think that 1995 was a stepping stone,
Mm,
for me and for you because we sort of journeyed that process together, and as those things sort of falling into place, and we always sort of knew that it's coming. South Africa were back into the international fray, if you like, from a footballing perspective. The opportunities were opening up. Clive Barker was building a massive team on the international front. We were doing well at our club, winning the double, of course, in
yeah.
1995. So it was almost as though the gods were aligning things for us, and the process, and the journey was all
Mm,
coming together.
mm,
But what I like about that particular era is that you and I got to do it together. I think of all the
mm,
teammates that I had and the journeys that I took, we sort of got to do it together. And I think
mm,
that was the exciting part for me, and that's how much I look forward to it.
mm. And 1996 AFCON, obviously, we get selected in a squad. Did you go into that tournament thinking that we were able to win it?
So that was a hell of a period, for us. Yeah, we were just. I think everything was. We. I don't know how you felt about it, but everything, we were all operating on adrenaline.
Mm,
And like I say about the stars aligning, Kenya pulling out of hosting it. In we come, they say, right, can you host it? You and I come off the back of that amazing journey we had at Cape Town Spurs. The doors are opening into the national team. But having said that, we were still part timers, still had our jobs going into
yeah.
that particular
Yeah.
tournament. Um,
Mm,
and uh, and I remember, that particular journey, and the opportunities that open. And then, of course, we go, well, hang on a second, we're playing on the biggest stage of African football here. Is that real?
mm, yeah.
That was the kind of feeling, sort of goosebumps, pinch yourself kind of moments, and that type of thing. And we realized, we've got a chance here. It's on home soil. We've got a fantastic team,
Mm,
and it still didn't hit home. It still didn't hit home, and I think after that first game, um, with that resounding 3-0 win, over Cameroon, Clive sat us down
mm,
and he said, um, "We can win this." And
mm,
all of a sudden, I realized that we could, in that particular tournament. That for
yeah.
me was when it hit home that we actually have got more than a chance of not only going to the final but winning it.
Sure.
But I want to ask you, when during that period,
Mm,
that tournament, or was it before, in your mind, when did you feel we could do that,
mm.
or did you feel we could do that?
I think without a doubt, obviously leading up to the Ghana game, I think we had some outstanding performances and games in that particular tournament. But that Ghana game for me just emphasized obviously our strength in depth in the squad and also what we were capable of doing. But like you said, I don't think anybody gave us a chance to beat Cameroon so convincingly in the opening game. So that already set a benchmark and a standard that no, this team is here to compete and to win. We're not just making up numbers as hosts. And that for me was obviously was quite interesting. Um, as far as the 96. But remember, we also had a 12th man, huh?
Yeah, very, very, very,
Always
very
at our home
important.
games.
Very, very
Yeah.
important. And you speak about
So,
Ghana.
mm,
You speak
yep.
about that Ghana game. I think it must have been about 3 or 4 days ago. Somebody sent me a highlights package of that Ghana game. Must have been about a 10-minute package
Was
of
it in
all the
black and
highlights
white?
in that Ghana. Well, it was just going over to color. You could still see the black and white in between. But and I tell you something, I watched the highlights package. We were that good in that game that I didn't even have
Mm,
to make one save. one save. There was one fingertip that I had to make when Tony Aboa got away from Lucas Radebe, and he had a strike. That was it. Everything else was us in possession, leading into those goals as well. And it was
Yeah.
unbelievable just to get an idea of how good the team was in that particular tournament. And so that brought back quite a few memories for me.
Yeah, but also I think when we talk about '96, it gave a lot of us opportunities, obviously, to go abroad, and you went to England with Fulham. How how was that experience initially? Obviously, going that side.
Yeah, but I got to tell you the story around that because it is a story that I'm that I'm very proud of as well. So we speak. Just take a step back quickly, and we speak about having day jobs. And I remember I was working for the Old Mutual at the time in Cape Town, and we went.
Yep.
We'd
Yep.
come back from. We just won the tournament, '96. I said to them, right, I'm going to be away for a month and a half, with this thing called the African Nations Cup. Do you mind? They said, no problem. Go ahead. We'll support you. And I remember coming back to work after winning the tournament.
Yeah.
And you'll know what the building looks like in Cape Town. You walk into the front door at this monstrous building, the Old Mutual building in Cape Town, and you walk into an
Yep.
atrium, and there must be about 3, 4, 5 floors sort of looking down on you into the atrium. And as I walked into the building, the entire building, the
No.
entire atrium was
Yeah.
all the staff from floor to floor to floor and chanting
Yeah.
and shouting congratulations and that type of thing. And of course, I had to give a talk and a word of thank you for their support and that type of thing. And it was unbelievable for me to realize what effect winning the Nations Cup had on just the people that I worked with at the time. And I'll never forget this. Once everything was finished, I walked into my office. And remember, I was only a little accounting clerk at the time, working for the Old Mutual. And I walked into my office, and my desk was entirely packed up and
Yeah.
quiet. And I went to my boss and I said, "And now,
Mm.
have I been fired?" And they said, "No, you don't work here anymore. You've got to go to the third floor. It's in the marketing department. You're an assistant in the marketing department now. You're going to be working with other staff." And I was like, "Wow.
Oh wow.
What about education?" I said, "What about education? Does that not count for anything?" And I said to my boss, "So
Yeah. Yeah.
tell me something. What's going to happen if I win the World Cup then, and I come back here?" And they said, "Well, you have to bring the World Cup to us first and see what's going to happen." So that would,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say, Shaun, the spin-offs that the winning the Nation
Yeah.
Cup brought to us footballers with opportunities, work-related opportunities abroad, like we experienced, was phenomenal, and I can only be grateful for that.
Mm. Mm. So having spent a couple of years in England with Fulham and Oxford, you came back and did you end up going to Sundowns before Wits, or did you go Wits?
So obviously I went over to Fulham, and it's weird the timing, because you remember we played the friendly against England at Old Trafford in 1997, and
Yeah.
Fulham had their scouts obviously watching the game. Then the coach was Mickey Adams of Fulham. Obviously, Fulham were in a lower league in that, then they sort of signed me from watching that as well. Because I remember I was in after that England game, I had to travel to Hong Kong to play in a FIFA All Stars game, and then I got a call to come straight to Fulham, because they had a contract on the table at the time. And it's funny enough, I remember I was in London and I was in my hotel room waiting to go and sign the contract in Harrods, and of course they took me to Craven Cottage as well, and I got a phone call from Harry Redknapp, and he was at West Ham at the time, and he wanted to know what was happening, because at the time his number one, Shaka Hislop, was going to sort of retire or move on, and that, and he wanted me to come and try, and I said,
Yep.
you know what, I'm going to be, I've committed to Fulham, and I'm going to do the deal and that. And he said, fair enough. And I went on to do that. And then it must have been about a month later when Mohammed Al Fayed took over the club, and he brought in Kevin Keegan and Ray Wilkins. So my time at Fulham was sort of hampered in terms of game time, because Kevin had brought in quite a few new players.
Mm.
But the experience was great to be part of the club like that. And then, of course, I spent some time at Oxford United. That was great. I got to be involved in a lot more game time there, which gave me that
Mm.
experience as
Mm.
well. But to answer your question, I was contemplating after my contract finished
Yeah.
at Oxford United, where I'm going to come back home again. And as I was contemplating, I got a call from Gulam Ali at Santos Football Club in Cape Town, and he said to me, "Right,
Okay.
what are your thoughts?"
Mm.
And I said, "Look, I'm contemplating coming back." He said, "Right, you're coming back and you're signing for me." But then I said to him, "Okay, I will contemplate signing for you, but you got to answer this question. Name me some players
Mm.
that you're going to bring in." And of course, he named me some quality players. Idris Burton was there. We'd signed Jean-Marc Etier, and we'd had a lot of sort of fresh new faces coming in. And I said, "Great, who's going to be your coach?" And he said, I'm bringing Clive Barker in." I said, "I'll be there tomorrow," and came back and went straight to Santos in Cape Town.
But it's quite amazing. Obviously, we speak to different people and you hear their journey. And one of, I think, the highlights of our career has to be also, besides 1996, it's got to be 98 World Cup, qualifying for that particular tournament, beating Congo at FNB. We both went to France, but obviously had different experiences.
Yes, yes. I think our careers are filled with highs and lows, and that's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
Any player will tell you the same thing. And
Mm.
I think what we've got to remember is this was the very first time that we, as footballers, get to play on the biggest stage of world football, and that's the FIFA World Cup. So there'd been a few changes that had come through the team in terms of the personnel.
Mm.
Clive had left. Philip Trusier had come in,
Yeah.
and I remember I was still over in England at the time, and he came across to England to come and chat with me and see me and that type of thing. And he said, "I want to bring you into the squad. Once you're experienced in the squad," and that was great. I was buzzing about that. And then of
Mm.
course, we travelled across and met up with the team. We had a sort of pre-tournament camp where we were just sort of travelling and getting to play some friendlies in preparation for the tournament itself. And
Yeah.
it was
Mm.
literally a day or two before the opening game against France when I did the cartilage in my knee, and unfortunately it forced me out, and I had to have an operation, which I did in France, and I stayed with the team, but it forced me out
Mm.
of the squad, and that was gut wrenching. Any player will tell you that to miss an opportunity just to be involved,
Mm.
never mind playing the World Cup, is gut wrenching. And I
Yeah.
remember feeling like something was against me. It was never going to happen. Bigger stage, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm with the team. This is where I want to be, and I need to be positive.
Mm.
And funny enough, straight after that World Cup, the work started for me in preparation for the next 4 years, leading up to Japan, Korea in 2002. So it was a positive sort of journey, and one that when I look back upon now, I thought I navigated that journey as best as I could.
Mm. Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, obviously there's a lot of triumphs and tragedies and setbacks. And what was the major factor for you to bounce back after that injury at the World Cup? What do you think was the key factor for you to come back from that injury?
Yeah. Um, I think the one thing, besides the teammates that I had around me, and the encouragement that my teammates gave me, you included at the time as well. Besides that sort of factor, that played a massive role in terms of the work that needed to be done to eventually play in the World Cup. Of course, family is always going to be important in that on that journey. Their inspiration, their
Yeah.
belief as well. But I think what I saw, and that's why I think the fact that I stayed on with the team through the World Cup, and I got to see what it takes, what the atmosphere is like, um, and get a taste of the fans, the game, the enormity of the game, how the game is watched throughout the world, and how the eyes of the world are on you as players. I think that was the ultimate motivating factor for me, to get straight back into the work and work towards the next one.
And then obviously you made your way back to South Africa. You said Santos and Sundowns. I have to ask you this: how did it come about? At probably age 45, you ended up playing a couple of games for Bidvest in the PSL, in the Premiership. Was there a shortage of keeper? What happened for you to come out of retirement to actually play those games?
Yeah, it was horrible. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Again, I was working with Clive Barker. Um,
Yeah.
I was Clive's assistant at Bidvest Wits at the time, because the club was contemplating where to go, and Jose Ferreira, the club CEO at the time, said to me, "Listen, we need to find a coach. What do you think?" I said, "You got to go fetch Clive," and we brought Clive in, and Clive said, "Right, you come, but he wants me to be his assistant." And now, just wrap your head around this. I had retired at the ripe old age of 42 officially as a professional footballer. And this is 3 years later. I hadn't trained a single minute at the level that's required. And it was absolutely freakish. We had 3 games to go in the season. I had a complement of 4 goalkeepers in my department, because I was running the goalkeeper department as well. And in the space of 1.5 weeks, all 4 of them down. I had a cruciate ligament. One of my goalkeepers just twisted wrong in a training session. The other one was a tackle, busted ankle. There was one of them who was already on a longish term injury. And my very last goalkeeper, Mimil Baron, broken leg in the last minute against Orlando Pirates.
Oh yeah.
I had a 16-year-old goalkeeper on the bench, and we had to put him in against Pirates with 2 minutes to go, and unfortunately he conceded, and we lost the game. And the very next day of training, in fact, our next game was against Tuks away, and the very next morning at training, Clive Barker said to me, "Right, we're down with goalkeepers. What do you think?" And I said, "Don't do that." I said, "I'm not going to get involved." He said, "You're the coach. You make the decision." And he said to me, "Right, you're playing." And I absolutely hated it. And just think about this. So we play against Tuks, and the game starts, and I don't know if you remember the big tall striker Mama Nyang. And he's playing for Tuks, and he's a giant. He's a giant. And we're leading 1-0, and Steve Barker was the coach at the time, and we're leading 1-0, and they start lumping balls into my 18-yard area from the halfway line. And it's those balls where I absolutely cannot say to my defenders, "You go and deal with it." It's literally coming at me. And this one ball, so 3 minutes to go in the game, they lob this one ball into my box, and I'm thinking, I have to go. I have to come for it. And as I'm running towards it, I see Mama Yang also jumping, and as I'm running towards it, as I'm starting to jump, I'm thinking in my mind, catch your punch, catch your punch, catch your punch.
Yeah.
And the next thing, the ball stuck in my hand, and I go right over the top of Mama Yang, and I stay down. And my teammates come around me, and the first thing they go, "Coach, are you okay?" And I got up there and I said, "I'm not your coach right now. I'm your teammate." And they were just laughing at me. But I tell you, I hated it, because it's 3 years. I'm 45. You don't see it as quickly as you must anymore. So that's given me the unwanted record of being the oldest player in the PSL.
Yeah, it's a record. I think a lot of people struggle to obviously to break, but you also held the record for not conceding a goal for Bafana. How many minutes or how many games were that?
Yeah, it was into my 8th game. It was, if I remember correctly, just under 700 minutes of not conceding a goal. over a period of time. In fact, when I the period between getting my very first cap and the next time I conceded was 593 minutes. And then I conceded against Egypt in the Nations Cup. We lost 1-0. And then I went on that record of almost 700 minutes after that, with not conceding. And fun enough, at the time, of course, that's broken now. At the time, it was unofficially second to Dino Zoff, who had kept more clean sheets in games and more minutes that he hadn't conceded goals. So I was pretty chuffed with that record at the time.
Yeah. No. So no, obviously you mentioned the fact that you played at 45, your last professional game, and everybody was calling you coach. Now you are officially a coach. How was that transition gone for you?
It's I tell you something. It's been a learning experience for me. I will say that, and I'm actually humbled by it. And so where I'm at the moment with my coaching is because I was lucky enough to play the game for a long time. So at 42, 45, I was still playing.
Yeah.
And what that did was it prevented me from, not prevented me, but from getting into the coaching courses, for example, straight after I'd finished, because I went straight into goalkeeping. I wanted to focus on goalkeeping, become a head of goalkeeping at clubs and that type of thing. And then I also went into the national team as a goalkeeper coach until about 2018, 2019. And then my then head coach at Supersport, Katana Tembo, said to me, "Come and be my assistant." And that's when I started proper getting into the coaching courses and that. I've been a busy boy the last year and a half. I've actually done 3 CAF courses in the last year and a half. And so I'm sort of, adding that to the CV. And then, and I always believe that you have to humble yourself by educating yourself, especially from a coaching perspective. And I've loved it. I've loved the coaching journey so far, coaching courses and that. And, I'm just seeing where it takes me.
What do you think is probably some of the important roles as a coach for a player perspective? What do you feel is your role as a coach?
Shaun, that's such a good question, and I think you've also been down that road and on that journey from a coaching perspective, because you're certainly a well-traveled coach as well. What I will say is I've had the honor of being in the company of lots of esteemed coaches over my playing career and coaching career so far as well. And what I've become very good at is taking bits and pieces from them. They've been old school, they've been modern, they've been all sorts of, through the process and that. And you know what it's like. Back in the day, coaches could say to us, "You're rubbish. You got to do this better. You got to work harder. Come on, that's not you." And you knew how to take it. You knew how to respond, because your immediate response was, "Yeah, I'll show you what I can do." That mentality's changed with the modern day player, especially the younger modern day player, where you have to work arm around the neck sometimes, and make them feel like they are capable, make them feel like and how I like to coach, especially the younger generation of the modern game, is through what I call guided discovery. So on the field, we'll get them to understand what mistakes they're making and get them to fix themselves, rather than dictating to them, "This is how you got to do it," because they've got to feel comfortable with the process, and they've got to own it as well. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that coaches face, and I know, and the pressure is there to win games of football. How you get it done is up to you as an individual coach. But my learning has indicated to me that I think you will get a lot more out of your players if you respect them and treat them as professionals. Make them feel wanted, make them feel like they are part of the process. But I think the most important aspect of becoming a successful coach in the modern game is to create an all-inclusive environment. What do I mean by that? Include everyone, even the ones who are on the bench and not playing regularly. Make them feel part of the process, and you'll have them for life, and they'll want to play for you. I think that's the learning that I've taken away from the process so far.
Mm. I think I'm going to end this with the last two sort of memories for me to ask you is the best coach you've played under and the best player that played with you in during your career. Who would you say those two people are?
Yeah, like I say, and anybody will tell you you've got to give me some time to think about that. But I think it's
Mm,
easy for me. And I've just said now I've worked with so many wonderful coaches
mm,
as a player.
yeah,
Coaches have brought me
mm,
success. My head coach at the moment, Gavin Hunt, I've had lots of success with him, and
yeah,
he's taught me a lot about the mentality of the game, the mental toughness that you need to win
mm,
things, and he's 100% correct. And I've always followed that lead, and I always want to install that on players that I coach as well.
yeah,
The easy answer there for me, I
yeah,
think, and the obvious one is Clive Barker. Clive,
mm,
he sort of molded me into an international goalkeeper. That's what he did for me. And
mm,
that's the ultimate that you can ask of any coach in your life, is to mold you into an international
mm,
player. And that's what I feel like he did for me. And how did he do that? He did that through his expertise of the game. He did that through his mentorship. He did that through being a father figure to pretty much all the players he worked around. And he did that through getting you to understand how important you are to him and to his team.
mm,
And so that will always hit home for me. And that will be the easy answer that I will always give in terms of who one of the best
mm,
coaches were. So, and I'm not saying this lightly from a player's perspective. Trust me, I'm not saying this lightly because you and I on the show right now,
yeah,
you aside,
mm,
because you played a massive role in my career. There's no question about
mm,
that. You and I have this international sort of bond in terms of how we work.
mm, yeah,
If I'm struggling at the back, for example, and I'm looking for an outlet, there you were all the time.
mm,
So that for me, and if I were to just go one step further than you, um, I'd have to say without a doubt, Shoes Mashwere. He was a
mm,
footballing genius for me. And I think people did not understand just how good he was as a footballer and
yeah,
as a person. Person, I used to call him the
mm,
philosopher
mm,
because he had the philosophy of
mm,
life, and he would just be so infectious about it when he spoke to you about it.
yeah,
And you just wanted
mm,
to talk to him all the time. But on the field
mm,
of play, he could mesmerize. I just watched that opening game, as I told you about,
yeah,
Cameroon, and also the Ghana game, and how influential he was in those two games alone for us. He was magnificent, and I think he was a
mm.
special player, and he's one of the best I've ever played with.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I actually saw a clip of him also the other day, how you're just mesmerizing an opponent and what he could do with the ball. I think a lot of players, even currently, would find very difficult to maneuver or master
Yeah,
that ball. But it's been
yeah,
an absolute pleasure. I think, this could go on for another couple of episodes because there are so many things that we haven't even delved into or spoke about as far as memories and games that probably that comes to mind where a lot of things happen. But I think just to get a little bit of insight and give
yeah,
something to the fans that probably most of them didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I would just like to
yeah.
thank you for this opportunity to actually chatting to you.
Well, you're 100% correct because there's so many things. And I think one of the highlights of my career as well is that I sat next to Nelson Mandela at somebody's wedding. It's a very dear person to me. His wedding it was, and I sat next to Nelson Mandela. There's a story for another time. But
Yeah.
but I can't let you go because I know there are
Mm.
so many people out there. I'm one of them, and I'm close to you. Who
Yeah.
wants to know what's next for Shaun Bartlett? Are you prepared to tell us on the show next? Is that going to come?
Uh, yeah, that just watch this space, I would say, because something soon will be on the horizon. And who knows? I've always said to you, I think, like you mentioned before, sometimes things just align, and we've also always mentioned the fact that one day we would love to work together. And who knows? That might happen very soon.
I'm going to be watching this space with bated breath. Lovely to chat, my friend.
Omni Sport Africa.